Je ne vais pas parler, mais je vais vous montrer quelque chose de très important. La chose qui est capitale pour cette guerre en Ukraine. La cause qui est capitale pour les Européens qui se sont engagés dans cette guerre. Vous savez que la promesse qui était faite par les Américains d'envoyer 40 billions pour soutenir la guerre de l'Ukraine, cela a été bloqué. Parce que vous savez, ici aux États-Unis, quand il y a une loi qui passe, c'est tous les sénateurs qui doivent voter. Tous les sénateurs ont leur mot à dire. Tous les sénateurs doivent être d'accord. Quand un sénateur bloque, cette loi doit repartir encore dans doit être revue. Donc là, la promesse faite par le papa d'ici, ce n'est pas encore arrivé. C'est ça qui suscite même la colère de Zelensky. La colère de Zelensky entre les Américains, c'est ça, parce qu'ils avaient annoncé d'aller les soutenir avec 40 billions. Mais comme les Américains eux-mêmes commencent à voir que cette guerre-là n'avait pas besoin d'être, et ça ne profite pas aux Américains, pourquoi aller dépenser tous ces fonds pour entretenir une guerre dont ils ne savent même pas pourquoi ils sont là-bas? Et surtout qu'il n'y a pas très longtemps, les Américains ont abandonné le matériel de guerre qui était très cher pour eux, qui a coûté très cher aux citoyens américains en Afghanistan. Alors ça, les gens, les Américains ne veulent plus faire cette erreur-là, ne veulent pas commettre cette erreur. Donc c'est pour ça que au Sénat, il y a eu des sénateurs, ils se sont réunis pour pour passer la loi qui consistait à envoyer des fonds à Zelensky, mais cette loi-là n'est pas passée. Et pendant ce temps qu'ils sont en train de négocier, de revoir les lois, eh bien, le grand frère, il ne s'arrête pas, hein. Le grand frère continue sa guerre. Donc voilà. Donc je vais vous montrer, c'est la loi et les sénateurs qui ont refusé, qui ont bloqué qu'on puisse débloquer 40 000 milliards. Regardez vous-même ce qui s'est passé. Je vais vous montrer ça. Attendez, je vais mettre le volume.
Attention all timeshare owners. This ebook is for you. 13 steps to cancel your timeshare without paying a lawyer.
Skip.
Madam President, I am offering this unanimous consent on behalf of myself and Leader McConnell. Let me explain the unanimous consent. As the war in Ukraine extends into its third month, we have a moral obligation to stand with Ukraine in its fight against Putin's immoral war. Earlier this week, the House passed a Ukraine package with overwhelming bipartisan support. It should be no different here in the Senate. The package is ready to go. The vast majority of senators on both sides of the aisle want it. There is now only one thing holding us back. The junior senator from Kentucky is preventing swift passage of Ukraine aid because he wants to add at the last minute his own changes directly into the bill. His change is strongly opposed by many members from both parties. He is not even asking for an amendment. He is simply saying my way or the highway. When you have a proposal to amend a bill, you can't just come to the floor and demand it by fiat. You have to convince other members to back it first. That is how the Senate works. If every member held every bill in exchange for every last little demand, it would mean total and permanent paralysis for this chamber. The junior senator from Kentucky knows that perfectly well. He knows that's not how this chamber works. Again, when you have a proposal to change a bill, you have to convince members to support it. The junior senator from Kentucky has not done that. So right now, in conjunction with Leader McConnell, I'm giving Senator Paul an opportunity to do just that. I'm offering to hold a vote on his amendment, even though I disagree with it. Let the chamber speak its will. Let both sides of the aisle have input. And for heaven's sake, let's get Ukraine funding done ASAP. We must keep our promise to the people of Ukraine. And I hope the junior senator from Kentucky does not stand in the way of keeping that promise. If Senator Paul persists in his reckless demand, we will not allow him to insert his language into this bill without a vote. And all he will accomplish is to single-handedly delay desperately needed Ukraine aid. I yield to the Republican leader.
Madam President.
Republican leader.
As I said earlier today, the Ukrainian people are fighting valiantly in a war they didn't ask for. Their brave self-defense has literally shocked the skeptics and inspired freedom-loving people all around the world. Ukraine is not asking us to fight this war. They're only asking for the resources they need to defend themselves against this deranged invasion. And they need this help right now. Sending lethal assistance to Ukraine is not just some kind of... philanthropy. This conflict has a direct and major consequences for America's national security and America's national interest. Russia's aggression cannot be allowed to continue cost-free. So I understand my friend and colleague from Kentucky would like changes to the bill. Those changes are not acceptable to...
Je te rappelle.
Majority, as we've just heard. So I think there's a simple way to solve this. We should vote on Senator Paul's amendment, and then we should pass the supplemental, and we should do it today.
Madam President.
Majority Leader.
On behalf of myself and Leader McConnell, I ask unanimous consent that the Senate proceed to legislative session and proceed to the immediate consideration of calendar number 366 S4190, Senator Kennedy's bill on Ukraine oversight, that the bill be considered read a third time and the Senate vote on passage of the bill. Further, that upon disposition of the Kennedy bill, the Senate proceed to the immediate consideration of calendar 368, H.R. 7691, a bill to provide aid to Ukraine, that the only amendment in order be the Paul amendment, which is at the desk, that the Senate vote on the Paul amendment with 60 affirmative votes required for adoption, that the bill be read a third time, and the Senate vote on passage of the bill as amended, if amended, and that the motions to reconsider be considered made and laid upon the table, all without intervening action or debate.
Is there an objection?
Madam President,
Senator from Kentucky.
reserving the right to object, my oath of office is to the U.S. Constitution, not to any foreign nation, and no matter how sympathetic the cause, my oath of office is to the national security of the United States of America. We cannot save Ukraine by dooming the U.S. economy. In March, inflation hit a 40-year high. Gasoline alone is up 48%, and energy prices are up 32% over the last year. Food prices have increased by nearly 9%. Used vehicle prices are up 35% for the year, and new vehicle prices have increased 12% or more. Yes, inflation doesn't just come out of nowhere. It comes from deficit spending. The United States spent nearly $5 trillion on COVID-19 bailouts, leading to one of the highest and most sustained levels of inflation in U.S. history. Americans are feeling the pain, and Congress seems intent only on adding to that pain by shoveling more money out the door as fast as they can. This bill under consideration would spend $40 billion. This is the second spending bill for Ukraine in 2 months, and this bill is 3 times larger than the first. Our military aid to Ukraine is nothing new, though. Since 2014, the United States has provided more than $6 billion in security assistance to Ukraine. In addition to the $14 billion Congress authorized just a month ago, if this bill passes, the U.S. will have authorized roughly $60 billion in total spending for Ukraine. For those who say this is not enough, for those of you in this chamber who say that our military spending is never enough, let's put $60 billion into perspective. According to Elias Youssef, a security assistant at the Stimson Center, Kiev would become the largest yearly recipient of U.S. military aid of the past 2 decades. Except for the top 5 countries, $60 billion is more than every other country in the world spends on their entire military expenditures. If this gift to Ukraine passes, our total aid to Ukraine will almost equal the entire military budget of Russia. And it's not as if we have that money lying around. We will have to borrow that money from China to send it to Ukraine. The cost of this package we are voting on today is more than the U.S. spent during the first year of the U.S. conflict in Afghanistan. Congress authorized force, and the president sent troops into the conflict. The same cannot be said of Ukraine. This proposal towers over domestic priorities as well. The massive package of $60 billion to Ukraine dwarfs the $6 million spent on cancer research annually. $60 billion is more than the amount the government collects in gas taxes each year to build roads and bridges. The $60 billion to Ukraine could fund substantial portions or entire large cabinet departments. The $60 billion nearly equals the entire State Department budget. The $60 billion exceeds the budget for the Department of Homeland Security and for the Department of Energy. And Congress just wants to keep on spending and spending. Our allies and partners have sent aid to Ukraine. Some of them even broke long-standing traditions by sending military assistance. Germany, Poland, the United Kingdom, and others are stepping up to defend Ukraine like never before. In other words, it's not all about us. It isn't that we always have to be the Uncle Sam, the policeman that saves the world, particularly when it's on borrowed money. Yet the United States accounted for nearly half of what's been spent so far. With a $30 trillion debt, America can't afford to be the world's policeman. The U.S. is trying to recover from the $1.6 trillion we spent on wars in the Middle East, not to mention the $5 trillion borrowed for COVID. We should not forget that the Soviet Union collapsed in large part, not because it was defeated militarily, but because it ran out of money. In an attempt to save Ukraine, will we doom the United States to such a future? In the past 2 years, the U.S. has borrowed more money than at any time in our history. We are already experiencing the greatest rate of inflation in over 4 decades. The assault on monetary discipline is untenable, and it cannot go on forever. Unless we put an end to the fiscal insanity, a day of reckoning awaits us. Congress should evaluate the cost of continuing down this path. The biggest threat to the United States today is debt and inflation and the destruction of the dollar. We cannot save Ukraine by killing our economic strength. So I act to modify the bill to allow for a special inspector general. This would be the inspector general that's been overseeing the waste in Afghanistan and has done a great job. So therefore, I ask the senator to modify his request so that the Senate proceeds to the immediate consideration of Calendar 368 HR 7691. Furthermore, that the Paul amendment that has be considered and agreed to, the bill as amended be considered read a third time, and the Senate vote on passage of the bill as amended with a 60 affirmative vote threshold for passage.
Does the leader so modify his request?
Reserving the right to object. It's clear from the junior senator from Kentucky's remarks he doesn't want to aid Ukraine. That is not the case for the overwhelming majority here. Again, all he will accomplish with his actions here today is to delay that aid, not to stop it. It's aid desperately needed by a valiant people fighting against authoritarianism and defending democracy. So I will not modify.
Is there an objection to the original request?
I object.
Objection is heard.
Donc ça, c'était
On behalf of my...
Ça, c'était la réunion des sénateurs pour faire passer les fonds, hein, les billions que le président, le papa, avait promis à l'Ukraine. Alors, donc, le sénateur Rand-Paul de Kentucky, lui, c'est lui qui a bloqué. Il a dit ils ne peuvent pas être les militaires, ils ne peuvent pas mettre leur économie en en Jeopardy juste pour aller sauver l'Ukraine. Et ils ne peuvent pas mettre plus de monnaie qu'ils ne peuvent pas s'endetter plus juste pour faire la police du monde. Donc voilà là où nous en sommes et qui vivra verra. Alors regardons, observons qu'est-ce que ça va donner maintenant que les Américains commencent à se rendre compte que cette guerre leur coûte cher. Et ils sont obligés d'aller s'endetter auprès de la Chine pour aller aider l'Ukraine. Alors, on ne sait pas ce que ça va donner. Et je pense qu'ils n'avaient pas vu que les Russes allaient résister et que les Russes étaient préparés. Donc voilà où nous en sommes. Alors, à bon entendeur, salut. Et tout ça, ce sont des informations que nous devons tous savoir pour connaître où nous... Parce que pour avancer, il faut savoir où nous avons commencé, où nous sommes, où nous allons arriver. Donc voilà, et en ce moment, nous sommes dans cette situation où même vous avez vu que Zelensky, en ce moment, il est frustré, vous pouvez le voir même dans son visage, il a perdu, il est soucieux, il est énervé avec les Américains. Donc voilà mes chers compatriotes, moi c'est Maman Olga qui vient pour partager les messages avec vous, mobiliser, sensibiliser, vous informer. Et voilà, cette information, c'est l'information qui s'est passée au Sénat des États-Unis. À bon entendeur, salut.